In this video, we will be talking about data link layer. So data link layer is a layer that provides service to network layer, which means network layer is here and data link layer is just below the network layer. Now there are few services that data link layer has to provide to network layer. Suppose that there is packet that is coming from the network layer, then data link layer does encapsulation at the sender side, which means it adds its own header. So this is a header of data link layer, and this network layer packet has already its header. So this is a header of network layer. This is a header which which gets encapsulated at data link layer, which is of data link layer header. Now at network layer we use something called as IP protocol, and at data link layer there are like we use Ethernet protocol most of the time, but there are no fixed protocols, which means when we talk about TCP IP, then it only specifies that at network layer we should be using IP protocol, and at transport layer we should be using TCP or UDP protocol, but it does not say anything about data link layer or physical layer. We can use any protocol as per our choice or as per our configuration. So here we should be using IP protocol if we are using TCP IP, and at transport layer we should be either using TCP or UDP protocols. And like these are the only two protocols that this TCP IP suite defines. Otherwise at data link layer we can use any of the protocol. So there are few services that data link layer provides. One of them is framing. Framing is nothing but encapsulation of encapsulation and decapsulation of network layer packet, which means if some packet is coming at the sender side, it will encapsulate, and at the receiver side what it does, it decapsulates the header from the data link layer and it passes that packet to network layer. So this is called framing. Second one is called flow control, and then error control. So there are few services that data link layer has to provide. Now let's see each service of each of this service in detail in the next video, but in this particular video I will be talking about something called as access controls in the data link layer. Okay, so we will be seeing these services in the next video, and in this video I will be talking about access control in the data link layer. Let's see that. So suppose that you want to send some packet from Alice to Bob. So Alice want to send some packet to Bob, and there are few configurations in between. Now there is a frame. So at data link layer the terminology is frame. See here, at data link layer this is called frame, and at network layer the terminology is packet. So at network layer we call it packet. Suppose that there is a frame, in that you already have packet, which means there will be a header of IP protocol which will be having source and destination IP. So this is a header of IP protocol which is having source IP and destination IP. This is a destination IP. Just check it. Source IP is N1, destination IP is N8. And this is data link layer header. Now in this case, you will be having you will not be having the source and destination IP of the whole network. You will be having hop wise, which means if we are sending a packet from Alice to R1, then the MAC address or the physical address, or it is also called link layer address of Alice, it will be L1, and MAC address of this interface, which is L2. So you will be writing L1 and L2. How we are getting this L2? This is using ARP. So we will study later. Using ARP we will be getting this L2. ARP is one of the protocol in network layer which we will study later. So using ARP you will be getting L2, and like this L2 will get sit in the header of data link layer. Now if you transmit this packet to R1, then R1 has to forward this packet to, suppose let's say, R2. Then in this case this N1 and N8 are always fixed. Now you will change the source MAC address, which is L4, and the destination MAC address, which is L5. So you will change from L1 to L2, you will change L4 to L5, right? So one more thing, like it although it does not matter much, but the order, if you see that source IP we write first and destination IP, but in case of MAC address we first write the destination MAC address and then we write the source MAC address. Although this order does not matter, I mean in the gate they won't be asking this kind of questions, but I just want to tell you for the information. So now once R2 receive this frame, then it has to forward this frame to Bob. In this case, the source MAC address will be L7 because of this link, and the destination MAC address will be L8 because of this link. Now you see this N1 and N8 are always fixed. You cannot change N1 and N8. Once you change then that N1 and N8, then the whole thing will get messed up. Suppose you change this N8 to something, let's suppose N10 or something, then this packet will never get delivered to Bob. It will get delivered to N10, which is some other host, right? So the takeaway point here is that you will keep on changing this physical address, but you will never change this IP address. Now when we talk about data link layer, as I told you in the previous class also, in data link layer, the data link layer is getting implemented or get implemented in the network interface card. So mostly the implementation of data link layer is in the hardware, which is in the network interface card. So this is network adapter or the network interface card which interacts with the CPU or memory. So most of the services or most of the things that data link layer provides are already implemented as a hardware, not as a software. So there may be few things which are implemented as a software, but most of the implementation of data link layer is in the hardware only. Now to further understand this data link layer, we divide this data link layer into two parts. One is data link layer, data link control sublayer, another one is media access control sublayer. So we need these two parts only when there is a broadcast link. What is a broadcast link? Is that suppose there is one link, and there are many hosts are connected to that. And if you want to send some packet from A to D, then you need to broadcast this packet. You cannot have a direct link from A to D. So if you want to any packet from any host to any other host, suppose B to A or anything, you need to broadcast this packet to everywhere. You cannot only send from B to A or from C to A, something like that. So this is a broadcast link. But suppose you have a point-to-point link. Link. If you want to send some packet from A to D, then you can suppose directly send. Then this is called point-to-point link, and this is called broadcast link. Right? This is called broadcast link. This is called point-to-point link. Now, in case of broadcast link, there is a protocol that is called media access control protocol. So why we need that protocol? Because in case of broadcast link, if every host send the packet randomly or without any protocol, then there will be a lot of collisions, right? Because suppose A is sending, B is also sending at the same time, and C sends something like that, then there will be a lot of collisions. So then in that case, we will be needing some protocols. And in this video, we will study that access control protocol only. In case of point-to-point link, we do not need any protocol, or you can have very simple protocol. I mean, if two persons are talking, then there is no complicated protocol that you need. You can have very simple protocol. If there are multiple persons or a group of persons are talking, then you need to have very specific protocols that allow only one person to speak at a time, so that there is no collision, right? So in this video, we will be studying this media access control sublayer and what are the protocols that are needed to implement to access this broadcast link. Now there are different protocols to access this broadcast link. There is one called random access protocol, which are like this. There are something called control access protocol. There are something based on the time or frequency divisions. So there are different protocols, but for the gate purpose, we will be only studying CSMA-CD, which is a random access protocol. Earlier they were using the Aloha, but now nobody uses the Aloha, so we want to be studying this Aloha. And the CSMA-CA is used for the wireless communication, not for the wired communication. That also we want to be using, right? So we will be only studying the CSMA-CD for the gate purpose. Now this CSMA-CD comes under the random access. And what is a random access? In the random access, the transmission is random among the stations. This is why it is called random access protocol. So suppose there is some broadcast link and that A, B, C, D, 4 hosts are connected to that. In that case, suppose some host wants to send some packet to some other host, then we will be using, like, there are different protocols, but in this particular video we will be only using CSMACD, which is a random access protocol. And in random access, no station is superior to another, which means it's not like that A has the superiority over B or B has the superiority over C or something like that. Every station is equal. Then how we allow only one station at a time, or how does this work? Let's see. In particular, we will be answering these 4 questions. First question is that when can the station access the medium, which means there is a medium, and there are A, B, C, D. There are many stations that are connected to it. So when can a station get access to this medium? Or the second question is that what can we do if the medium is busy? So suppose that some packet is already being transmitted, and let's suppose B transmits some packet, and C, like, this is the packet of B that wants to send it to D, suppose, and C sends that packet. Now C sends that medium, then C finds that the medium is busy. So in that case, what should C do if the medium is busy? That's the another question. And how can the station determine the success or failure of the transmission? Which means, suppose B is sending a packet to D, then how can B determine that the packet gets successfully delivered or there is a problem? What can the station do if there is a collision? And suppose, like, collision has happened, then what should we do in that case? So these are the few questions that we will be answering using CSMACD. So CSMA means carrier sends multiple access, which means if multiple hosts wants to access, then first it will sense the carrier. It is as good as saying listen before you talk. So before you send the data, just sense the carrier. It is like sense the carrier before you send data. So suppose that A wants to send some data to C or to D or to B. Then in that case, first A will sense the channel. So A will sense the channel whether the channel is busy or not. If the channel is busy according to A, what do I mean by according to A? Let's suppose that B is sending some packet to C, then that packet will get broadcasted. So that's the packet, and that packet will get broadcasted, and after some time that packet will reach here and will reach here. Now C is here. That packet has still not reached to C, but it has reached to A, right? It has reached to A. Then in that case, if the A sense at that time whether channel is busy or not, then A will sense that okay, there is some packet on the channel, it means channel is busy. But if C sense whether the channel is busy or not, then C will say channel is not busy, right? Because packet is here, and if C sends the channel, then C will say channel is not busy. If A sends the channel, A will say channel is busy. So that's what I mean by saying that according to A, whether channel is busy or not. So a station monitors the medium after it sends the data, sends a frame to see if the transmission is successful. So a station will do what? A station will sense the medium once it transmits the data to see whether the transmission is successful or not. Now let's see that in more detail. What do I mean by collision in the CSMACD? Suppose that you want to send some packet from A, this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D, from A to D. And, like, what is the first step? First step is that A will sense whether the channel is busy or not. So in this case, A will say that okay, there is no packet on the channel is ideal, right? Channel is free. And suppose D also wants to send some packet to A, then D will also sense whether the channel is busy or not. So in this case, channel is free, so D will also start transmitting the packet, and D will also send the packet to A. Now after some time, what will happen? After some time, both packet will reach in the middle, right? There are two packets, and both the packets will reach in the middle. Suppose this is the packet of A, this is the packet of D. Since there are two packets, then what will be the case? In this case, there will be a collision. So after collision, there is something called jamming signal, right? Jamming signal, which is of higher energy to say that there is a collision. So this is also called collision signal or jamming signal. Now this jamming signal or collision signal get transmitted back to A. So once there is a collision, so here we have the collision. Now there will be a jamming signal which will get transmitted back to A and also to D. So to every station it will get transmitted. Now if you see the sequence of steps that is happening, first A sends the channel and D sends the channel. They both find the channel is free. Then they start sending the packet, and after a few minutes or after some time there will be a collision, and after this collision there will be a jamming signal that get transmitted to A or to D, to every other station basically. So this is what collision means in the CSMACD. Now let's suppose they both of them start the transmission at t equal to 0. At t equal to 0 they start the transmission, and let's suppose that there is a 10 minutes that it takes from A to D. From A to D the propagation time is basically, let's suppose, 10 minutes. Now after how much time it will reach to the middle, or if I ask you after how much time there will be a collision, since it takes 10 minutes to reach from one end to another end, and if I ask you to the middle, it will take just 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Then after 5 minutes there is a collision. But the bigger question is that, do A know that there is a collision? Do A know there is a collision or not? Since the collision signal has not reached to A yet, A will not get to know that there is a collision or not. So A will get to know only when the collision signal reaches to A, right? So after another 5 minutes, the collision signal will reach back to A. After another 5 minutes, this is at t equal to 5, and then at t equal to 10, which means after 5 minutes this is happening, after another 5 minutes this is happening, which means the collision signal reach back to A or to D. Then after 10 minutes total, so from this starting, after total 10 minutes, A will get to know, okay, there is a collision. So A will get to know that there is a collision. Similarly, D will also get to know that there is a collision. Right? So both of the stations will get to know that there is a collision after 10 minutes. I hope that is clear to everyone. Now once they know that there is a collision, they will abort the transmission. So that's what the abortion means. Once they know there is a collision, they will abort the transmission. Now here we do not have any facility of acknowledgement, so there is no ACK policy, which means like station A has to detect somehow that the transmission is successful by their own end. So D won't tell. If A is sending data to D, then D won't tell that it has received the packet. A has to somehow find it out. So for that we have something called as minimum frame size. So what do I mean by that? Suppose that there is a packet that A has to send to D, okay, and that packet get transmitted or get propagated till this point, and suppose at the same time D is also sending some packet to A, and after some time this packet will also reach to the middle. So as we see, suppose the propagation time is 10 minutes, as we have already seen. Then after 10 minutes, so after this propagation time, after this 10 minutes, A will get to know if both stations are sending at the same time. Let me write it here. If both stations start transmission at same time, then after this much time, which is 10 minutes in this case, time A or D will detect there is a collision, isn't it? Now suppose A still has some data to send, which means it has not sent its data fully, so it is keep on transmitting the data. Then it will definitely be sure that the data that got involved in the collision, it's own data, which means it's no other station data, its own data got involved in the collision, if A still has some data to send. So in like this suggests us that the minimum data it should be sending be such that it should be able to send the data till TP time, which is the propagation time, which means the transmission time should be greater than equal to TP. This scenario suggests us this. that if it keeps on transmitting till the propagation time, then it is able to detect the collision, right? But is this always the case? Which means that if I have the transmission time greater than or equal to propagation time, then it always detect the collision, that there is a collision. See, there are two things. Whether the collision occurs, this is the one thing. Second thing, the detection of the collision, and both of the things will happen at the different time. So collision detection, occurrence of collision happens at t equal to 5, but the collision detection is at t equal to 10. So there is a difference, right? Now let me consider one scenario. Suppose that A has some data to send and A is sending some data to D. And then what happens, that A is sending, and then the first bit of whatever A is sending, the first bit arrives at D. Like just before it arrives at D will sense whether the medium is free or not. Since the bit has not been arrived at D, so D will think that medium is free, right? So D will also start sending the data, and the moment D starts sending the data, there will be a collision here. So occurrence of the collision. So if I just say occurrence of collision is at what time? Is at TP time, right? Why TP time? Because collision is happening here, which is after this propagation time or after the 10 minutes, right? So collision is happening after the 10 minutes. But do A get to know that there is a collision immediately, or A will get to know after some time? So after how much time A will get to know that there is a collision? After another TP time, because the collision signal has to transmit back to A, then after another TP time. So total 2 TP time it will take. By that time, A will realize that there is a collision. So collision detection will happen at this time, right? Collision detection will happen at after 2 TP time. Now if A has still some data to send, then it will only be sure that my own data got involved in the collision, which means that the transmission time should be greater than or equal to 2 TP. If that is the condition that we impose for every station, then we are 100% sure that its own data got involved in the collision, not any other data, right? So this is the condition to detect the collision, which means if you remember the formula of transmission time, this is length upon bandwidth. So this is greater than or equal to 2 TP, which means L is greater than or equal to 2 TP into bandwidth. Now this should be your length of the packet to detect that there is a collision. So if I say about the minimum frame size, then it should be L should be greater than or equal to 2 TP into bandwidth, right? Let's see one example, and after that it will be more clear. Let's see this question. In this question, that they are saying that a CSMA CD is being used and it has a bandwidth of 10 Mbps. If the maximum propagation time, including the delay in the device and everything, and the time needed to send the jamming signal and everything, so the maximum propagation time that is given to us is 25.6 microseconds. So what they are asking, the minimum size of the frame. So L should be greater than or equal to 2 TP into bandwidth. Now TP, the propagation time is given to us, which is 25 into 6 into microseconds, which means 10 is power minus 6 if I convert that into seconds, into bandwidth is 10 into Mbps means 10 is power 6. Now bits per second, now it's also in the second, 2 into. So this is the minimum frame size. Now it will be 51.2, and then this will get cancelled out and into 10, which means 512 bits, which is also 64 bytes. This is the minimum frame size in this case. I hope you got the idea. Now let's see, there is one algorithm that is called back-off algorithm. Now what does this back-off algorithm does? It says that if there is a collision, suppose that A is sending some data to D, and suppose there is a collision that has occurred, like at any time it can occur. So if there is a collision, then let's suppose it has occurred just before D sends the first bit, and the first bit of A has arrived here. At any time it can occur basically. So suppose there is a collision, then how much time A or D should wait before sending the packet next. Which means if there is a collision that A and D both are sending some packet, and if there is a collision, then after how much time they should again send the packet, because ultimately they need to send the packet, right? Suppose that after 1 minute both start sending the packet, like after basically a fixed amount of time, or after the same amount of time they both start sending the packet, then there will always be a collision, right? See, A and D are sending the packet, there is a collision, then after 1 minute they both start sending the packet again, then there will be again the collision, right? And in this case, like they will never these packets will never get delivered to A or D, but we do not want collision, right? So there is some random amount of time that we will ask A to wait, and there is some random amount of time that we will ask D to wait. Suppose we ask A to wait for only 1 minute, but we ask D to wait for, let's suppose, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Then after 1 minute, A will start sending the packet. It will get delivered to D, and then in this case, like there will not be any collision. But suppose if we ask both of them to send the packet after 1 minute, then again there will be collision, right? So Wyckoff algorithm reduces the chance of two station waiting by picking some random amount of time. So this is an algorithm which will pick some random amount of time for both of the stations, and this is how we will stop the collision. Basically we will reduce the chance of collision. Now let's see how it is happening. Suppose that there is a station A, there is a station B, and there is a, like, they send the packet and there is a collision. Now after first collision, so let me write it, n means let me say, or k means, let me say, there is a collision number. So k equal to 1 means there is a first collision. After first collision, A will choose some random amount of time to wait, and B will also choose some random amount of time to wait. Now the amount of time they choose is in between 0 to 2 power k minus 1, right? So in this case they will choose 0 to 2 power k minus 1 is just 1. So they will choose the amount of time either 0 or 1 in the integers only. So B will also choose the amount of time between 0 to 1, which means there are like 4 possibilities. A will choose either 0 0, like A and B will choose 0 0 0 1 1 0 and 1 1. There are 4 possibilities, which means A and B, like this is saying that A and B both will start transmitting the packet immediately. This is saying A will start transmitting the packet immediately, but B will just wait for 1 minute or 1 unit of time, or 1 into some time tau, right? And then in this case there will not be a collision. In this case there will not be a collision. In this case again there will be a collision. So this is collision. This is no collision, or in fact you can say that there is no collision, but you can say that A is sending the packet first. So let me just say that A is winning here, and here B is winning, and this is the collision, right? This is collision, this is collision. Here A is winning, B is winning. Now after, this is the scenario after the first collision, which means after the first collision, what is the chance? If someone asks you what is the chance that there is again a collision, then you will say the probability that there is a collision will be just 1 by 2. If you are using this Wyckoff algorithm, then after the first collision, what is the chance that there will be a collision again? The probability is 1 by 2, right? What is the chance that there will be no collision? Probability of no collision, it is 1 by 2 again. So after the first collision, 1 by 2 is the probability for collision, 1 by 2 is the probability of no collision. Now again, if you see that who will get access to the channel first, like, which means who is winning, the probability of A winning is 1 by 4 and probability of B winning is also 1 by 4. So both are having equal chance of winning, right? Now let's say A wins. Let's say A wins, which means A get the access to the packet and A wins, and A has sent its packet successfully. So I'm assuming that A wins. Now this is the second packet of A that A wants to send, and this is the first packet of B, like, because we have not sent the packet yet, right? Now suppose after that, like after 1 unit of time or after some amount of time, A sends the packet and B also sends the packet, and there is a collision again. So in this case, for the second packet, just focus here, for the second packet, that's the only first collision. So A will choose between 0 to 2 power k minus 1, and here k is just 1 because that's the only first collision. So just listen here, the second packet, A sending the second packet, B is still sending the first packet. So one collision has already been occurred for B. Now if if in this case also there is a collision, suppose there is a collision that has occurred, there is a collision between the second packet of A and the first packet of B, then again they have to apply the back-off algorithm, right? Now back-off algorithm says that A has to wait some amount of time and B has to also wait for some amount of time, and that is determined by this interval. So A has to wait for 0 comma, for the second packet that's the only first collision, so 0 comma 1, but for the first packet, for the B perspective, there is the second collision, so B will wait for this amount of time, which means 0 to 2. So A will either wait for, let me just write it, A will either wait for 0 amount of time or 1 amount of time, and we will wait for 0 amount of time or 1 amount of time or 2 amount of time, 0 amount of time, 1 amount of time or 2 amount of time, right? So there are different possibilities. Let me write it, like it may wait for 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, similarly 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, right? There are different possibilities, which means here there will be a collision because both are sending immediately again. Here, like here there will be collision, here there will be a collision. So this is the probability of collision, this is the probability of collision. Like, I mean, these are the collision scenarios, and here who wins? Like there is no collision, but let me just say A wins because A is sending immediately. Here B wins because B is sending immediately. Here again A wins, right? So if I ask you what is the probability of collision, then you will say that 2 times there will be collision out of 8 times, which means 1 by 4, which is a good news. Why? Because earlier the probability of collision was just 1 by 2, which was high, and now it is just 1 by 4, which is quite less. In fact, it is half. Now if you just ask me that who is winning, which means who is sending the packet first, so probability of A wins is more because A is winning 3 times and B is only winning 1 time. So probability of A winning is just 3 by 8. Probability of, sorry, these are the 6 scenarios, right? So it will be 2 by 6. This is 1 by 3 and it will be 3 by 6, which is just 1 by 2, right? And probability of B winning will be 1 by 6, right? So these are the probability of collision, A winning and B winning. Now the probability of collision has been reduced because earlier it was 1 by 2, now it is 1 by 3. Now probability of collision has been reduced. And why it is reduced? Because we are favoring A. We are saying that let A first transmit the packet and let B wait. We are favoring A, so that's how the probability of collision is getting decreased, and that's how the back-off algorithm works, right? I hope you got the idea. Now if I talk about summary of CSMACD, then the first step is that if the medium is ideal, then transmit, otherwise it will go to step 2, which says that if the medium is busy, then continue listen until the channel is ideal. If channel is ideal, then it can transmit immediately, and if there is a collision, then it will send the jamming signal and then it will wait for the back-off time. So this is the summary of CSMACD, which I also have as a flow chart. So it will say whether channel is busy. If yes, then it will keep on checking whether channel is busy or not. If channel is not busy, it will transmit immediately. If there is a collision, then it will transmit the jamming signal and wait for the random amount of time using the back-off algorithm. If there is no collision, then it is done. That's how CSMACD works.